Here's the part number for the Napa CV shaft, 949564. And this is a new, not a reman. Use a 21mm socket to remove the lug nuts. Straighten the cotter pin that'll be bent around and pull it out. You're going to use needle nose and a pair of diagonal cutters to sort of wedge this thing out. This one's beat up, so I'm going to put a new one in when we put the new axle in. Then you can pull off this little locking cover thing. Then we can get to the nut that's on the end of the axle. Have a little old man jump in the car, push on the brakes really hard. Use a 32mm big boy socket. And then just have a hernia popping this thing loose. And take the nut the rest of the way off. Loosen both of these bolts going through the strut here. Take a flathead, pop this clip out so that this hose is not connected. Straighten and remove the cotter pin on the outer tie rod here. Loosen the nut. Get the nut to the tip of the tie rod. Then you're going to whack it with a hammer right here. And the vibration should let it pop up. And then pull the nut off the rest of the way. And pull the tie rod out of the spindle. There's a holder plate right here, this silver one. And there's a 13mm here and a 13mm on the opposite side that you need to take out. And then that'll let the piece here come out of this bracket holder right here. So if you try to pull this thing out without taking this off, it's not going to come out. You're going to take your pry bar and you're going to go in between that center bracket holder and the CV shaft, and you're going to pop it loose by twisting or prying or whatever scenario ends up working good for you until that thing pops out. Don't pry over here at the transmission because you can damage the transmission seal. You don't want to do that. Do all the prying over here on the axle side, and you might have to heat it up if it doesn't just come out, but try whatever you can do to get it unclicked from the transmission. When you pull the axle out, you're going to be coming out the front, like down this way, not out of this side. You're going to bring it out this way. When you're putting it back in, I'm sliding this forward and turning it. So now I have a straight shot to get the axle in. You're going to want to be very careful not to hit the transmission seal and mess that up. So really you should have two people, one person to slide it in from the wheel well, one person to guide it in to the transmission. Take a little bit of wheel bearing grease, put it on this surface, and I put a little bit on the splines. Don't gum it up, you know, just enough to where it slides through the transmission seal without causing any rubbing or ripping or tearing or anything. It'll slide right in. Put that plate with the two 13mm bolts back in. You sort of have to shimmy it in, but it'll fit in. Make sure that's all tight because that holds that middle bearing. Put this clip in. Put the tie rod in with the nut, torque it down. I torqued mine to 80 foot-pounds. That's probably too much. Whatever. It works. Cotter pin. Then I'm going to tighten these here. I'm going to tighten these to 100 foot-pounds each. And then this one, I just have my torque wrench maxed the hell out at 150 foot-pounds. For this big 32mm. But in order to get this one, stuff your wife in the car, tell her to push the brakes as hard as possible so that this doesn't just spin. Then you can get the torque on it. Boom. After torquing down the nut, there's this little collar with teeth. You're going to want to make sure this hole lines up so you can put the cotter pin in. And then you bend one part of the cotter pin in and one out and over. Just put your wheel back on and you're totally done.